Hey guys, it's Lauren from Lauren Leslie's studio, and this is lesson one of Photoshop for Dumbo heads. Enjoy. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is open Photoshop and come to File, New. So this is going to be where you want to create your new document, and for our purposes, I'm going to show you how to create an invitation, which is like a 5x7 card. So this is what I'm going to click on. What you would do is come over here and let's see, if you're in a new one, you would come to print and then you would type in 5x25, 5.25. The 0.25 is to give you what's called a bleed area. So this is giving you a little bit of extra space so that your design or your words aren't getting cut off when it's being printed. Okay, so that just gives you a little bit of a buffer. And you want to make sure it's set to inches, not pixels or anything. Okay, and then here we're going to get into resolution. So you've probably heard the term high res, low res. What's that mean? We can't print this, it's low resolution, blah, blah, blah. All right, so basically what that means is it's called the DPI or the PPI, which means dots per inch or pixels per inch, where you're getting the pixels per inch here. Now, for print, the standard amount of dots per inch or DPI is 300. So if your resolution is 300, you are safe to print. That's awesome. That's good. For web, because everything that was being uploaded to websites or that is being uploaded to websites, it can't hold too much information. Basically, when you have a higher resolution like 300, it's just a bigger file. So for web, you don't need it to be such a big file. It really doesn't need that much information. And so the standard DPI for a web-based, a website or an email or any kind of screen image is 72 DPI. But since we want to have something printable, we're going to leave it at 300. Then you come down here to the color mode, and it's set in RGB color. This is for screen, again. If you keep it in RGB color, it's going to show you on screen, pretty well how it's going to look. But for print, we want to come to CMYK. All right. I'm just going to leave the background as white because I think that's the easiest thing. So that's good. And square pixels is fine. Okay, so then you're just going to hit create. I'm going to bring this. You have different tabs open. So I've already created an invitation for my good friend Erin, and I'm going to kind of toggle between these two screens so that I can show you how I did it. But you can also drag this until you see that blue line come up and drop it here so that it's flush with your tools in your artboard. So now we have a 5x7 card, actually 5.25 by 7.25 card. All right. So the next thing we want to do is set up our layers. Now you can come to Window, Layers, or you can just press this one. Once you work in Photoshop, you'll start to memorize some of the icons, but if you've never worked in this program, it's going to be a little hard to know which buttons you're supposed to push on and what they do. So, for example, you might recognize, like, this is the crop tool, like that's pretty recognizable, but some of these other ones, like, you're probably like, what the hell does this do? But yeah, so we want to create our layers. That's a really important part of working in Photoshop because you can layer different elements on top of each other to create what you want without losing any part of the image. So you can kind of like drag this out. Now your first layer is going to be the background, and it is a locked layer. I would just leave that as is. There's no reason to really mess with that unless you're starting from a photograph or something like that. But for our purposes today, we can just leave that as is. Okay. So you want to create your layer 1, and that's by clicking on this little guy at the bottom. You can also come to the top little lines here and create new layer. So that would create another new layer, but we don't need that yet. So basically the way it's going to end up looking, if I bring Aaron's design in here, is that you have a bunch of different layers in here. Again, like you can see, if I click off of all these other layers, we just have the blank white page, which is our background. Okay, so each layer, you probably want to name it something recognizable because you're going to end up with a lot of different layers. And as you can see, like some of them I just left it like layer 9, layer 11, blah, blah, blah. But some of them I named. So if you want, to be able to easily spot your layer on the layers panel, I would just go ahead and rename it, which you can do by double clicking. So I'm going to call this like flower, I don't know, flower, let's see, we have flower 2, flower 3. Okay. So then I know when I click on it, that flower shows up. And right here is where you're going to be able to toggle off and on the visibility. So the eyeball kind of represents that you're seeing it, and if you click it off, then you hide it. You don't see it anymore. So that's an easy way to kind of work with these layers. And you're going to see a lot of different options up here. So basically, like if let's say that like you love this flower where it is and you want to work with some other elements, but like you don't want it to move, you can click the lock button, and then it'll show up here in the layer, and like I'm trying to click on it and nothing's happening because it's locked. Okay. So then you can click off of it and then you can move it around. See how awesome that is? Okay. All right, so that's pretty much the way you set up your layers panel, and that concludes our lesson 1. Thank you. See you next time for lesson 2.